Welcome back, Poker YouTube, to another How to Beat Live Low Stakes Poker video. Today's video, we're actually going to do a hand history using PokerScope. These guys that created this app did a great job. I've mentioned that before when I've shown this. It looks like they've had some updates recently maybe, but yeah, this is a really nice way to put in a quick little live hand history and share it with you guys. So we're going to take a look at a spot where I triple barrel in position versus like a tight aggressive player, and I would say with an emphasis on tight more than aggressive, maybe even more like, I would say he's aggressive enough. He can be labeled as a taggy player, but yeah, 2-5 game, and he limps for 5, another limper. I make it 35 on the button with queen 10 of clubs. Our taggy villain, who we are effectively deep with, decides to call, and we go heads up to a flop of king 8-7 rainbow. So baseline strategy for me here in the live low stakes streets is that if he does check me, which they typically will, like over 90% of the time here, especially on a king high board that's very dry like this, gonna go ahead and bet small. Bet small with range. We do have a range advantage. We don't have to really talk about that or worry about that too much in these games, but we are able to do this just because we do have just less air in our range and more strong hands in our range, so we can bet more frequently. But yeah, it's a good spot to bet. Queen high is probably not going to be winning here that often, and we can set up multi-street bluffs to get him off of like a lot of his range, which is pocket pairs, a lot of like ace X suited types of hands. So he decides to call, and the nice thing about the small sizing as well, because it is a rainbow texture, we do have to take into account that he could have some slow plays. If it is a two-tone texture, meaning that there's a flush draw possible on the board, then I don't really take account or into account slow plays that often, if at all. I think they just tend to play those spots much faster, much more straightforward. But in general, I think some of the biggest mistakes, or one of the biggest mistakes rather, that the live low stakes environment makes is just fast playing and just playing like way too ABC in many spots. And this would be one of them where like I think you see a lot of check raises with two pairs or better, just what they do. And so, not saying he can't, it's not a profitable play to do that, but he's just really putting his cards kind of face up on his forehead a lot of the time for me. So he does go ahead and just call, and I think we can deduce again that he likely doesn't have a hand like 8-7 suited, pocket 8s, pocket 7s. It tends to be like the top of range is going to be capped to one pair. Like it could be a hand like king 10, maybe king jack. He might be able to throw some of those in. Suited versions of those I think might raise more often than not, but I could see this player and this type of opponent having some hands like king 10, king jack, king 9 suited. But then you'll see a lot of like ace 8, ace 7. You'll see like maybe pocket 6s, pocket 5s, pocket 4s that think they're good right now, but they don't think about how they're likely going to face future barrels, and that's something that you guys need to take in consideration when you are out of position making very marginal calls, and whether your hand operates better as like a check raise bluff or a fold. That's something to think about as well. So ace on the turn, and he decides to check. And, this is definitely, I would say for the most part, a better card for me than him. Like I said, I think he'll call with ace 8 and ace 7, but I don't think he's going to peel with like pure air like ace 9, ace 5, ace 4, ace 3 suited, etc. So he has a little bit of ace 8 and ace 7, but generally speaking, I still think he has a lot of like 9-8 suited, 7-6 suited. There's going to be like 6-5 suited, 10-9 suited for the straight draws. Jack 10 maybe for the gutter at that sizing, I think, and now that picks up a double gutter, so that's definitely possible. But I think it's a spot, obviously, that I can definitely represent still a lot of hands for value now, and I can get a lot of hands that are better than mine to fold, so I do continue the sizing of a little bit less than half pot. Now, a lot of you might say, well, if we want to try to get him to fold, if we're trying to rep hands like ace, let's say like ace 10 or better, if we're polarizing, shouldn't we start to size up in these spots. Well, in the live low stakes games, I don't really worry about balance at all. And this is a spot where I like to go small when we get a really high ranking card on the turn, because what ends up happening is with any hands that were slow plays on the flop, let's say pocket eights or pocket sevens were slow plays. But like I said, very rarely he'll show up with those. But if he does have a hand like ace 8 or ace 7 suited, that's against this sizing, that I think a very fair often of the time, just very often in general, I think he is going to put in a check raise. And so when he doesn't, I think that often does cap him to, say, a hand like 9-8 of hearts that's an 8 and picked up a heart draw. He could have 6-5 still for the straight draw, or he picks up a heart draw as well. Like I said, there could be like some Jack 10 in there now with the double gutter. But if he doesn't raise, I think I honestly give him like a lot of pairs or just pair plus draw hands that are worse than, I would say, maybe the king. For this sizing, he might peel with like a king jack or king 10 or king 9, especially if he picked up hearts, of course. But I don't think those hands are necessarily raising, especially from like a tighter aggressive player. So because we said he's likely not calling the flop with pure air with those ace X combos that aren't like ace 8 or ace 7, then we don't think he really has like any top pair here. It would just, if he has an ace, he also has an 8 and a 7 in his hand way more often than not. So it's either we're looking at like a pair that maybe he decides to see one more street and he hopes I show it down and just check behind river. But there could be some combo draw stuff in here. So I wouldn't love to see a heart river. It might not be one that I would want to bluff that often. But we would want to be mindful of, I would say, like 9 and 4 rivers are not great, because I think he does have like some 6-5 in there. I think he does have some 10-9, so we have to be a little bit mindful of like the jack and 6 rivers as well. But those are kind of things to think about. Like, what is his range now? Like, we can really start to narrow this down. And so we have a plan going to the river. We're going to be able to probably put in a nice triple barrel at the end here. So I do bet, and he does end up calling again. So I think that does give him a lot of, like, I thought in my mind it was a lot of like 8x hands that picked up hearts. Like I said, it could be 6-5, jack 10. Those are the main hands I thought about, but I don't think he has a top pair or better at this point. Like, I think his best made hand is probably like king jack or king 10 that's kind of holding on here, maybe king 9 of hearts, like I said. So we get a queen on the river, and the only hand that really improves for our opponent is likely jack 10, and luckily for us, fortunately, we do have a 10 blocker, so that's nice. And this is where I think a lot of you would make a mistake, where he checks and you would think to yourself, well, based on what we've said about this hand, it's very likely that the queen has some showdown value. And you're right. I don't think that checking back is necessarily a bad play here, but let's say we overestimated his ability to fold like some ace X hands on the flop, as well as if we check back, it would be a shame to lose to a hand like king jack or king 10 now, or king 9 of hearts. So yeah, we're beating like the 8x hands. We're obviously beating 6-5. Jack 10 is a hand that I think honestly might lead river a lot here, getting here this way, and we block it anyway. So if he has jack 10, he has jack 10, but honestly, like, instead of just checking back and showing down, and we sometimes lose to like a king or an ace, but we beat some of those pairs, if we put in a massive bet now, repping hands like sets or backdoor straights, like two pairs like ace queen or ace king, then we get everything to fold but jack 10. And like we said, like, he doesn't lead in the spot. A lot of guys will lead jack 10. They might go for the check jam, but we do block the 10. If he has it, he has it. It just is a really unfortunate run out for us then. But I think this was a great spot to actually put in the massive overbet, trying to get him to honestly fold, like I said, really everything in his range that's not the jack 10. Like, if he has an ace, I wanted to make sure that I folded that out. Now, there's an argument that the one thing I thought about this hand where I'm possibly look back on it and could think that I made a little mistake is that we probably could just bet like 300 here and you're still getting everything to fold but the ace-x hands, but I don't think he has a ton of ace-x hands, like I said. So this might be a little overkill, and it risks a good bit more against the jack-10 that we run into kind of rarely. But like I said, jack-10 as a pure gutter, like these guys, yes, for that sizing, he might call flop. I think he'll call flop a fair amount of the time. They should be probably adding more, I would say, check raise against small sizing, but it is a spot where I think we can definitely go smaller if we think he's deprived of top pair here, because really, like, you just need a sizing that folds out hands that are less than top pair. And then if you are running into jack-10, then you save a ton of money here. So, like, honestly, you could even argue just betting like pot, and you're going to get hands that are less than top pair to fold. But the ace is where I got held up a little in the hand, like in the moment, and I thought, okay, maybe he does have, like, maybe I did overestimate his ability to fold some ace-x on the flop. Maybe he peeled with like some ace-10 or ace-9 with like a backdoor suit, and now he's got top pair. I just wanted to make sure that that folded, and I think that this was the appropriate amount to get that to fold. Now, does he fold like ace-10 or ace-9 against a triple for 250? I think they do, like, a fair amount of time, especially the tight aggressive guys. But if it's like more of a station or a loose passive player and you think they just way overvalue top pair in a spot like this, then you have to think, like, what amount gets him to fold here, and what amount would you want to go all in? Like, what hand would want to go all in here and get a call with 880? Like, well, it would be jack-10, and so we have a 10 in our hand, and that is something that works out really well for us being a blocker at this point. But, like, without the blocker stuff, the GTO, the main point of this video, guys, is that we don't need to go crazy large on every run out, and especially as we progress through the hand, and especially in position. Like, in position, when we're deep, we want the hand to extend out over as many streets as possible most of the time, because as we become more polarized and they become more capped, that's just a massive advantage for us. And so we want this hand to play out over multiple streets in position when we're deep as often as possible. So it's not always going to work out that way, and there are going to be spots where it is better to bet larger. Like, if the ace was a deuce of hearts, I think it makes more sense to start sizing up a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, I think in this particular spot, if you believe your opponent can have top pair, or they even could have a hand like 8-7 they played, so, like, those are hands that are not going to fold to like pot, or like a in the box type of bet that you guys are just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna, the pot's, I know it's roughly 250, I'm just gonna bet 200, and I think that's a good amount. Like, they're never gonna fold for that amount. But for 880 effective, they're gonna fold like pretty much everything that's in their range at this point. But like I said, I kind of thought after the hand, I didn't really range him as having like a lot of top pair. I just felt like it was a lot of combo draws, and like maybe king X hands that held on that would definitely have folded for a lot less than this. So this is a little bit inefficient if I range him as not having as much top pair, but if I think that he could have had some top pair in his floating range on the flop and then he turns top pair, then I think this amount works out fine. So yeah, if there are any questions or comments, go ahead and let me know. And like the video, subscribe to the channel, come visit us over at archcitypoker.com, where I do have some free standing videos with hand histories like this. We also have the courses or modules that we've created, as you will, that will definitely help increase your win rate, put you guys in a position to run really simple strategies that are built to exploit the fish in the live low stakes game. So like I said, any questions or comments, let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks.